paralytic drawing players are proud to present to you, yet again, the radio play! And by the way, it is a radio play, so don't expect to see it because it's radio. John Carstairs in Wobblies and the Moon. The scene is the moon.
Wow.
In a glassite-walled palace. Foul deeds are about to be done. This is a job for John Carstairs, Space Detective!
John, wake up! The Wobblies are broken loose!
Anytime you're meant to do it.
I'm not this place like that.
Carstairs right.
I just done that, yeah.
John, let me in! Open the door! The Wobblies!
Take it easy, dear, and the blasted seeds are fleshy.
So that was you getting your bed.
Oh, but darling, if we should lose them! Our rarest specimens walking about loose! Can you blame me for getting excited?
No, I suppose not. Open the door yourself, it isn't locked. Why don't you sit down on the bed? I want to look at the lunar apennines for a moment. It always helps me wake up.
But if you shut the Gleason! One of them came to my room and climbed out of the window! I encountered another in the corridor. When I tried to catch it, it hurled a knee at me! It's near here, on my shoulder!
Oh, sorry. The nozzles of the lunar wobbly are strawberry-coloured, downy objects, approximately 5 to 6 inches in diameter.
We'll get it out. They are loathsome creatures, but worth their weight in platinum.
An adult lunar wobbly can weigh up to 115 pounds.
You don't seem very upset about losing them. They're probably streaking back to the mountains by now.
We're Gleason's guests, aren't we? We're spending the weekend with him. The right kind of host doesn't let his guests down. If I am any judge of character, he won't rest until he's tracked down some more specimens for us.
John Carstairs, you're the most cynical, ungrateful person I've ever known. Gleason is an extremely wealthy man. He doesn't have to collect specimens for you.
He's a good egg, but vague. Endowing expeditions for us and collecting for us puffs him out like a kid's toy balloon. He likes to pose as a scientific creep shot. Yeah, I had last night in walled palaces, the moon decked out with 7 black plastic bathrooms. I forget about science with a capital S, I just be myself.
What makes you think a wealthy man can be humble soldier in the army of science?
Heck, we're not fighting anything. Am I a soldier? All I do is collect unhealthy plants and hold down dull jobs on Earth. Utterly nightmarish plants. From glowing Venus to Neptune's chill domain, to quote from the dumb poems I once read.
John, what are you driving at?
Well, do our expeditions save human lives? Is our work really important? Vera, I'm just a tired old man killing a dull weekend with an elderly playboy in his pleasure palace on the moon. If he hadn't sent me a spaceogram telling me he had an extraordinary new specimen, would I call for it? I'd be killing a duller one on Earth.
You've gone on the wrong side of the bed, all right. Oh man, indeed. You're a few hours past 28 on account of this is your birthday. But you're not so old. All you need is a nice big pep up inside. A nice juicy murder. You're just disgruntled because you can't have the New York Police Department track down the criminal element. You're as sore as the dickens because you can't get the research work and go rushing around like a turkey with his neck struck down, stretched out on a chopping block.
You're a botanist 8 days out of 7. Right now I'm fed up. Fed up, you hear?
But John!
Oh, right. Wobblies are rare, Wobblies are valuable, and Gleason is a resourceful collector. He didn't even know Wobblies existed on Luna until he hoisted 3 adult specimens out of a mountain crevice and sent that spaceogram. I was elated at first, but it's worn off. I'm bored, peeved. And if we've lost them, I don't give a neptunian peso.
Botanical John Carstairs is going to eat crow. He's going to apologize to the most gracious host a man could ever have for putting up those valuable specimens in a fragile glass of barium. And if you think he'd go and pick more Wobblies for you... What was that? How horrible!
Doesn't like your disc.
Sorry, that was ululating howl for all those who are not aware of what an ululating howl sounds like.
No copyright intended to be infringed.
Your turn.
Carstairs snatches an oxygen mask from an overnight bag, clamps it on his face and rushes to the window. He throws a casement wide and strides out onto the balcony. Time out here. They are on the moon.
John! That scream came from downstairs! He can't see anything from here! The Wobblies won't be visible in this glare!
It's coming from Gleason's sleeping turret. He sleeps with his oxygen mask on and his windows flung wide. I just wanted to make sure.
Then why are we standing here? Oh, he's dying!
Get back inside. You ought to have more sense than to come out here without an oxygen mask.
Are the Wobblies attacking him?
It couldn't be the Wobblies. They're not carnivorous and their nettles merely irritate the skin a little. Now get back inside before your lungs buckle into foam! Take it easy, Vera. If you drop dead, you'll be sorry later on.
Minutes later, they arrive at Gleason's sleeping turret, and I may also point out that it's still on the mend at this point in time.
John, you better put your shoulder to it. It seems to be stuck. Oh, John, I'm frightened. Oh my God! Look at those 3 huge Wobblies!
What's on Gleason, Vera?
He's dead, John!
Carstairs advances towards the bed, ignoring the nettles thrown at him by the Wobblies. Although one graces his right cheek and another embeds itself in his shoulder. 180.
He's game for a 2 today.
He briefly examines the corpse, draws the sheets up over it, and with a shudder turns from the bed. Vera is staring at the Wobblies with terror stenciled on every lineament of her twitching face.
John, did these ghastly things attack him?
How many times must I tell you Wobblies are not flesh eaters? They hurl nettles to protect themselves from their natural enemies, but otherwise they're harmless. When Gleason observed them in the mountains, he took copious notes. They're freakish but harmless perambulating plants.
The appearance and behaviour of the Wobblies seemed to belie Carstairs' words. They now hurled themselves across the dead man's bed, plucking their quivering tendrils at the sheets which covered him. Hideously man-like they seemed, with their grey and eroded and looking like body roots writhing against the sheets. Tall they were, at least 7 feet in height, and proportionately broad of shoulder. The fact that they had 3 tendrils on each side of their torso-like bodies in lieu of arms, and that they moved, when erect, on stumpy legs, which caused them to wobble grotesquely, did not detract from the illusion of humanness which their appearance conveyed. Once, jocularly, Gleason had called Carstairs' attention to the fact that a Wobbly, with its tendril arm extended and its body twisted, in the act of hurling a nettle, looked unlike a pitcher in the old Earth game called baseball. But now, Gleason was no longer capable of jocularity, and Carter's expression was as grim as death. He was sniffing the air and staring at his hands, as though bewildered by his ability to flex his fingers when his palm was a column of ice, his tongue a mass of swollen jelly.
John, what is it? I don't smell anything.
It would be better if you did. Vera, this is devilish. Something utterly diabolical has occurred here. Yet there isn't a mark on him.
What, John? What is it?
It defies reason. There are unmistakable evidences of foul play. Brownish mucous membranes, dilated pupils. Characteristic odour, but only his body exudes it.
Okay.
Uncle was always eccentric, in death as in life. Peculiar. Different.
Carstairs turned on his heels, his jaw hardening. The youth standing in the doorway had a sickly leer on his face. He was wearing black silk pajamas and had thrown a monogrammed towel around his shoulders. Carstairs had met Gleason's weak chin, dissolute nephew several times in Ireland, and had hardly been able to stomach the youth's exaggerated mannerisms and his delight at knowing someday Felix inherited his uncle's wealth. Henry Gleason Showalter was unmistakably intoxicated, but his sneering manner did not seem to emanate from the alcohol he had consumed. His gaze was steady enough, and his voice had a quality of smirking contempt for the living and the dead, which chilled Vera to the very depths of her being. Before she could draw away, he patted.
You're right in your element, aren't you? Helping him with his police work.
You cold-blooded little rotter! Your uncle is dead! Doesn't that mean anything to you?
John, control yourself. Put it down.
In his present condition, how could it mean anything? He's been drinking steadily for hours.
Mother Clayton looked hard and cynical. She looked infinitely more cynical than Gleason's nephew, but it was obvious that she had more strength of character than the weak-chinned youth, and that she knew. Sorry, turning over right here. When and how to keep her thoughts to herself. The fact that she was Henry's fiancée had amazed Carstairs at first, but after conversing with her in Gleason's presence, he decided that she was nobody's fool. She was marrying Showalter for the money he'd eventually inherit. She was a gold digger, if ever there was one. A hard, calculating little minx. Behind her, in the shadow, hovered Li Chan, Gleason's Chinese butler, his face drained of all colour.
Oh, the master is dead. He was the highest man I ever knew. A very kind man.
An energy pellet flooded into the wall next to Carstairs' head, shaking the entire turret.
Like a red spot of Jupiter.
Don't cry, Dan. Thank God it's in a real radio.
Dude, that's where it was. The windows flamed orange and a thin ribbon of smoke drifted into the turret from the darkness beyond. Carstairs knew that an automatic held 5 energy pellets, and with one mighty bound he leapt through the window into the cold blue night. He could see a figure running away swiftly. Pulling his oxygen mask down over his face, Carstairs pounded after him. Ahead, Carstairs could see a small vacuum plane. The machine poised at the edge of the platform, its forward struts gleaming in the earthlight, its magnetic traction vanes humming. Even as Carstairs' gaze swept over the plane, the fleeing figure heaved itself into the cockpit and bent sharply forward. The plane zigzagged across the edge of the platform and took off so abruptly that Carstairs nearly lost his grip on the structure he'd made a man die for. Clinging to the plane with both hands, he let his long legs dangle and cursed himself for a madman. The plane rose sharply, then tripped, descending towards the foothills in a graceful, hawk-like glide. Carstairs looked down and felt his spine congealing. Sheer height, when viewed from a solid structure, is seldom terrifying. But likewise, otherwise, when the observer is clinging to a thermal structure and circling plane. Beneath him yawned a dizzying gulf of emptiness, walled in darkness and substructured with peaks which looked like stalactites in reverse, each one which seemed capable of impaling him and rotating him in screaming agony until the end of time.
Maybe this wasn't such a good idea.
Downwards the plane swept. It had ceased to descend gracefully and now began to gyrate like a wounded bloody bird. It swooped from left to right and seemed to be on the verge of breaking up. Carstairs' nerves were still shrieking when the plane settled to the ground in deep gulch between two peaks and glided to a halt with a barely perceptible jolt. White-lipped, Carstairs dropped to the ground and tore around to the front of the plane. It was a reckless thing to do, for the emerging pilot blasted from the heck the instant he discovered he had a passenger. He stood half out of the cockpit, grasping a strut with one hand and emptying his automatic pistol at Carstairs with the other.
You're a bum pilot, Bowles. You're also a bum marksman. Stands to reason, doesn't it? You can't be any good at this.
That's what you think!
You meant to be reading the dial.
Hang on. Fight clean, Bowles.
I'll get you! Oh!
What?
Carstairs raised his eyes and glanced about him. The wobbly he saw was a quarter of the normal size. A baby wobbly, an unmistakable fledgling of the species that Gleason had captured in the study, was standing a few feet away. Its tendrils fluttering in the hot air currents from the plane turbines. Its small, rugose body was quivering from panic. Lifting Bowles' limp body in his arms, Carstairs made his way to the backing plane and thence back to the tower, sure that he had another corpse upon his hands. Only when he removed the running Bowles from the rear seat in the cockpit did the truth strike him like a bolt from the blue. The big, pugnacious bruiser was allergic to nettles. So allergic, the shock of one entering his flesh had brought on a convulsion and laid him out completely. It wasn't such a rare mishap, thank you. From a medical viewpoint, but it left Carstairs stunned and gasping. That big husky giant, front lobe by a nettle from a baby wobbly? Carstairs deposited Bowles on the floor of Gleason's sleeping turret, directly under a dim, cold light bulb. The big rectangular chamber had frightened down, for Vera Dawn had not been idle in his absence. She had sprayed a narcotic vapor over the three Wobblies, and then locked him up in a metal vivarium. She then sent Mona Clayton back to her sleeping turret on the floor below, and turned on Showalter, a glance so withering that he slunk furtively into the shadows. He was now standing in a dim recess behind Gleason's bed, his eyes boring holes into the blue.
I lost my head when you swung at me. I've nothing against you, Carstairs, but when you came at me like that, I had to defend myself, didn't I? I'm a little hot-tempered, sure, but I didn't kill Gleason. It was that little hyena over there.
Why does everyone think of Gleason's nephew as a hyena? You blasted before I clipped you. You tried to shoot me down in cold blood. You tried to shoot Showalter down. Why did you crouch in the darkness outside that window and try to drill him?
I'll tell you why. I took my job here seriously. I like flowers. That may seem kind of screwy to you, but I mean it.
It doesn't? Go on.
Well, you've seen Gleason's orchids. Glass encased, sure, with air pumped in. Tropical, terrestrial plants. Nothing fancy about it, but I took a personal pride in them.
You did a good job. Raising perfect plants in artificial sunlight is a tough assignment.
That's it. Perfect. My orchids were perfect. Perfect, you hear? I liked my job and I wanted to keep it, but he didn't want me to. He came stumbling into the greenhouse last night, high as a kite. He tore up my flowers by the roots. He upset trays. He turned a hose on my finest bed. Did you ever see fine blooms flattened into mud soup?
Perhaps I would have killed him myself. We're all savages when something rasps us in a vital spot. But you had a few hours to calm down in.
Yeah, but then he ran to his uncle like a dirty little schoolboy sneak. He accused me of getting tanked up and then throwing my own trays around. Gleason gave me my notice before he turned in at midnight. He called me a liar, refused to hear me out.
He wouldn't listen to any honest man or woman. He deserved to die. He was a hard man, cold and unjust. There was no compassion in him. I'm glad he's dead. May you rest in torment, James Gleason.
Go back to your room and stay there. If I need you, I'll send for you. You've been a good housekeeper to James Gleason. Why should you hate him so much?
It's not for me to be telling you. You'll find out soon enough.
Vera, I said that something diabolical had occurred here. I'm afraid it's worse than that. Listen carefully. I'm going to take one of the Wobblies up to my turret. I want you to bring me Gleason's notes. All of them, you understand. His day-by-day observations, the complete record of what he saw on the mountains when he studied the Wobblies from blind. His speculations as to their feeding habits, the chemical and osmotic tests which he made on the 3 specimens which are now our guests.
But you've almost memorized those notes.
I know, but there are minor details I may have overlooked. One more thing. Give me 15 or 20 minutes leeway before you snap to it.
12 minutes later, Vera Dorn tapped apprehensively on the door of Carstairs' sleeping turret. She had steeled herself to encounter an unusual manifestation of Carstairs' genius at work. But the sight she saw when she shut the door firmly and turned to face her employer was so completely ludicrous that it chilled her more than any gruesome exhibit could have done. One of the Wobblies was sitting upright in a chair by the window, tendril arms bound by thin wires and its stumpy legs interlocked. The anesthetic vapour which Vera had sprayed over it had worn off, and it was squirming about and emitting shrill. Tapering head was a semicircular metal disc, somewhat resembling an aluminium eye shield. From the disc, a thin glass tube descended to the creature's waist and branched out off at right angles to its body root. A few inches beyond the bent section of the tube, the glass terminated in a flexible rubber extrusion that carried the tubular portion of the apparatus across to Carstairs, as lower to Carstairs' hands. Carstairs was sitting on the edge of his bed, pressing a large rubber bulb at 5-second intervals. Every time he gave the bulb a squeeze, pale greenish fluid bubbled and frothed in the glass portion of the tube, occasionally ascending to half disc on the plant creature's head.
Good Lord!
Quiet, Vera. If the pressure goes any higher, we'll have a dead Wobbly on our hands.
John, are you out of your mind? Why did you trust that poor thing? Pressure, John! What do you mean?
I'm taking its blood pressure. To be strictly accurate, it's sap pressure. Although the fluid which circulates in its veins contains actual blood platelets and mononuclear cells containing basophilic granules, its blood pressure is unbelievably high now. So high.
John Carstairs, how can he take the blood pressure of a plant?
Vera, I thought you majored in botany at college. Perhaps you'd better go back for another semester of intensive osmotic research. You know, the summer course for girls with very low IQs who can't quite make the grade.
What has
through their roots by osmosis and draw it up through the woody part of the stems by capillary attraction and the process known as transpiration. All these processes are accelerated by the pressure of sugar and salt in the sap. In terrestrial plants, the nutrient fluid is an amalgam of common minerals. But in lunar plants, a different kind of nourishment is sucked up, and their veins are filled with specialized chemicals capable of accelerating its absorption. When osmosis is accelerated to an abnormal extent, a plant's blood pressure begins to rise. It may reach 20 or 30 atmospheres. On Earth, many plants exhibit the symptoms of high blood pressure, but leaf or tendril evaporation drains off the excess nourishment and keeps them from going into convulsions. Here on the Moon, there are no such environmental safety valves. Plants scarcely perspire at all, due to environmental factors. They have to eat sparingly or else.
But no plant or animal ever eats sparingly. A dog, for instance, never knows when to stop. And for that same rules apply all the way down the biological scale.
True, but you're forgetting that living creatures gorge themselves only when there is an abundance of nourishment. Wobblies feast on a substance that is rare on the Moon. Being perambulating plants, they have to suck it from the nearly airless vacuum that is the Moon's atmosphere through their body roots. And it costs them a tremendous amount of effort. Ordinarily, their blood pressure remains low because they have adapted themselves to an environment in which nourishment is scarce. But nourishment wasn't scarce here in the tower last night. I have a very sick wobbly on my hands, a wobbly that is going to put a noose around somebody's neck. That wasn't Gleason we heard screaming last night. It was 3 wobblies with high blood pressure, ululating together in his sleeping turret.
Who's next, John?
You'll know when I'm sure. I've got to get answers to a couple of spacograms first. If what I suspect is true, the murderer is no ordinary criminal. He or she must possess a mind of the very first order of malign cunning. You can do something for me, Vera. I want you to get them all together in Gleason's sleeping turret. Bulge, Shelter, the Chinese butler, Lola Clayton, and that sweet white-haired grandmother, Miss Newton. Get them together and give me 20 more minutes.
When Carstairs finally appeared in the doorway of Gleason's sleeping turret, the 5 white-lipped people gathered there stared at him as though he was a visitor from Saturn. His expression was utterly inscrutable, and an almost godlike detachment seemed to emanate from him. He hoped that none of the 5 suspected that he felt like a scared kid with one exploding thumb falling above a high voltage electric wire. Nodding at Vera, he crossed in silence to the bed with Gleason's sheet-covered body lay, made sure that the light did not fall directly on his head and shoulders, and swept the 5 suspects with his gaze.
If there was any crime that you would not have committed to get your hands on your uncle's well-shod order, it would have been mentioned in whispers by anyone with an ounce of decency. You were quite capable of killing your uncle, and you would have experienced no remorse. I have a pretty complete account of your, well, I'll be charitable and call them escapades on Earth. I sent a spaceogram to the New York Police Department, Mr. Showalter. You've got a record of 7 arrests, ranging from drunkenness to arson. You're a thoroughgoing rotter, but you did not kill him. You are either a chemist or a genius.
Neither. It should be neither, sorry. My bad.
Why are you staring at me like that? Do you think that I killed him?
No, but you are suffering from the same disease as Showalter. I'll be charitable and call it ungratefulness. Gleason raised your salary every time you came to him with a hard luck story. The last time you rasped his patience a little and he didn't give you as much as you thought you deserved. Consequently, you hated him. You're a pretty good guy, Lee Chan. Did you kill Gleason?
Not a, Mr. Gleason was a good guy himself. Highest man I ever know. Highest man.
Yes, there are still a few kindly people left in the world. But you're not one of them, Bowles. Sulfurated hydrogen, Bowles. Paralyses the respiratory system and causes rapid death. She's one of the deadliest gases known, comparable only to cyanide fumes at the swiftness at which it acts. If the concentration is marked, fatal effects by inhalation are immediate. Oh, you are clever, Bowles, posing as a humble lover of flowers, very eccentric, with only one consuming passion in life. A simple gardener living only for his plants.
You're crazy, Carstairs. What are you driving at?
You were not only interested in orchids, Bowles. You were interested in Wobblies. And you persuaded Gleason to let you see his notes. Your prints were on the sheets Miss Dawn brought to me. You're also a toxicologist, Bowles. You worked in a chemical laboratory on Earth, and you knew that sulfurated hydrogen had one advantage as a killing agent. It leaves an odour, the strongest odour of any lethal chemical, one that hovers in the air and impregnates the flesh of the victim.
He lies! Oh, darling, defend yourself! Tell him!
Darling, is it? I thought so. Bowles, you knew that sulfurated hydrogen leaves an unmistakable odour, but you also knew the Wobblies feast on it. It is their natural source of nourishment. It clings to the walls of deep gulches in the mountains, and they suck it up through their permeable body roots. Last night you treated the 3 Wobblies that Gleason had captured to a feast. You smashed their glass herbarium and released them, after pumping sulfurated hydrogen into Gleason's sleeping turret through a sprayer from outside the window. You knew that Wobblies can scent sulfurated hydrogen halfway across the room, and you figured that they would streak like starved bloodhounds to Gleason's turret. They did. Vera Dawn encountered one in the corridor and one in her sleeping turret. But Wobblies are like that. They know that a roundabout way is often the quickest distance between 2 points. They climbed down outside and entered through the window that you had purposely left open. When their blood pressure rose and they ululated, Miss Dawn and I raced downstairs to discover that they had sucked up all the sulfurated hydrogen in the air, leaving it crisp and odourless. Gleason usually slept with his windows thrown wide, but last night you must have had to raise the pane to pump the gas in. Although we found the casement the way you had left it, there was still air in the room. The Wobblies would have sucked that giveaway odour out of Gleason himself. But we got to him in time, and a little of it still lingered when I bent over him. You thought the Wobblies would clear away every trace of the gas and make it look like Gleason had died from natural causes. When you saw that I had it tagged as murder, you tried to throw suspicion on Showalter by accusing him of upsetting your trays last night, and subtly hinting that maybe Gleason hadn't quite believed his nephew's version of the affair either. In other words, you implied that Showalter was in danger of being cut off without a cent.
That's a lie. You're trying to frame me, Carstairs.
Think so? I've got a spaceogram here from Earth that says you and Miss Clayton have been partners in crime for a decade, and that you're wanted for blackmail and murder by the San Francisco police. Oh, it was beautifully planned, Bowles. All you had to do was murder Gleason, and the rest would unwind like a carefully coiled spring. Showalter would inherit a fortune, Mona would marry Showalter, and you and Mona would take a vacation somewhere, Showalter's inheritance in an overnight bag to brighten the trip. You should have picked a less allergic partner, Mona. I suspected him from the first. But what really clinched it was his aversion to nettles. He plucked the nettles out, most of the nettles out of the Wobblies with tweezers before releasing them. It was just blue funk, I guess. He couldn't bear the thought of being in the same tower with nettle-hurling Wobblies running around loose.
But one of those Wobblies hurled a nettle at me. Jonathan, at you! There's one on your shoulder now!
I said most of the nettles, Vera. When I examined the Wobblies half hour ago, I couldn't find a nettle in them. I knew then that I had him, and I could see the noose tightening about his neck. The fact that he must have overlooked 3 nettles deep in the pouch of the tallest Wobbly won't influence the jury very much. 3 nettles, one for you, one for me, and one for evidence of...
Damn you!
Carstairs crossed the room in a flying leap. For the barest fraction of a second, he paused to hurl the casement wide and clap his oxygen mask.
Ah! Oh, no, you don't!
Cursing himself for a sissy,
Oh, I'm a sissy.
Carstairs tore into the lunar night. His reluctance to tear his face to ribbons had proved a costly mistake. Bowles, now 30 feet away, was running across the edge of the platform towards a even spar of light. Instantly, Carstairs had a vision of himself descending once again the foothills on the throwing strut of a vacuum plane. It was an appalling vision, and it chilled his heart like ice. It also stopped him in his tracks. He hurled the nettle with surprising ease, his body twisting like a picture in the old earth game called baseball. Spinning about on his toes, Bowles tottered for an instant at the edge of the platform and then plunged downwards, his body revolving as he fell towards the peaks which looked like stalactites in reverse, each one seemingly capable of impaling him and rotating him with agony forever. Carstairs turned away, shaken and a little sick. It seemed like an eternity later when he heard Vera's voice.
Darling, you have to operate on us both. There's still one nibble in my shoulder and one in yours. You can't just pluck them out.
No, I suppose not. Now, where did I put that antiseptic? Ah, good. But next time you bump into a wobbly in the dark, try talking to it. It will quiet right down.
You mean my voice would calm it down? John, how sweet of you.
When you pay a woman a compliment, she always stays still for a moment. I've never known it to fail.
Then you didn't mean about that, my voice.
Oh, certainly, but I wanted to get you to hold still.
Ladies and gentlemen, I give you the
Paralytic players.
paralytic Plymouth Armadacon players in John Carstairs' Wobblies on the Moon. If you've enjoyed this production of this amazing radio play,
Wobblies on the piss.
please reach into your pockets and give generously because it's all for charity. Thank you.